all Americans must know this one simple thing. If Kamala Harris becomes president, as bad as things have been under Joe Biden, they're going to be even worse under Kamala Harris as it concerns our broken border.
Kamala and the Democrats are absolutely freaking out over what Texas Governor Greg Abbott just did with their voter rolls. They just purged over 1 million ineligible voters from their rolls. It's just the beginning. We're going to see some amazing developments in the arena of election integrity in Texas and all across the country. And we're going to see precisely why the Democrats' futile hopes for November are getting dashed by the day. Hey gang, it's me, Dr. Steve, your Patriot Professor, here to help you stay sane in these insane times. So make sure to smack that bell and subscribe button. Also, before we get into some of this amazing news coming out of Texas and elsewhere, do you ever wonder how people like Nancy Pelosi seem to know exactly when to buy certain stocks? How politicians seem to have secret knowledge of what's going to do well in the market? Well, it's all insider trading. Pelosi and her cronies have been getting away with it for years. But guess what? You and I actually have access to that very same insider information. Thanks to a little SEC loophole, we can track what the big corporate CEOs are buying up in real time, and then we get to ride their coattails into financial success legally. Now, once you learn the secret of the trade, you're in. Now, to do that, you got to join me along with my good friend and trading expert, Ross Givens, this Thursday, August 29th at 3 p.m. Eastern. Ross is the real deal. I mean, his insider tips have led to returns of over 200%. Some have hit as high as nearly 1,500%. This is going to be huge, but seating is limited. Click on that link below right now. Snag one of the remaining seats. This is going to change your life, gang. You're not going to want to miss it. Texas is once again showing the world whenever they do something, they do it big, Texas style. Governor Greg Abbott just announced that since signing Senate Bill 1 into law back in 2021, Texas has officially removed over 1 million ineligible voters from the state's voter rolls. Among those removed, over 6,500 non-citizens who were illegally registered to vote. Over 6,000 voters who have a felony conviction, nearly 500,000 deceased people who were never removed from the rolls, and over 134,000 voters who moved out of the state but again had not yet had their names removed. Now, what's so hilarious here, and I do mean patently hilarious, is that this announcement comes on the heels of Democrats actually trying to fabricate the fantasy that Kamala has a chance of turning Texas blue. Now, admittedly, that hoax, and that's exactly what it is, it's a legacy media-generated hoax. Admittedly, that fantasy went too far, even for the left-wing activists disguised as journalists in the legacy media, so they appear to have basically dropped it over the last couple of weeks. But if there were still some Kool-Aid drinkers putting their hopes in that possibility, well, those hopes were completely dashed with this announcement. All signs suggest that Texas is going to get even more red than it's ever been in November. Trump is going to win by a wider margin in 2024 than he won in 2016 and 2020. Now, just to give credit where credit is due here, this is but the latest in the great state of Texas taking the initiative and rising to the occasion. For example, the New York Post recently published some stats. Texas is actually on track to building more border wall than Trump did in his 4-year term. Texas has added upwards of 200 miles of border wall, razor wire, and fencing across their border, in addition to the wall constructed under Trump's administration. Here's Texas Governor Greg Abbott.
We either have already built or have under construction more border wall than what the Trump administration was able to put up. We are building these razor wire barriers with National Guard standing behind them, preventing illegal entry. And we will be passing this law to arrest illegal immigrants coming into the state of Texas. And so we, as a state, continue to deploy more action fighting back against the Biden administration's open border policies, doing everything we can to prevent illegal entry into our country.
And he's doing it, gang. Texas forces are doing it. There's been a dramatic reduction in illegal border crossings ever since Texas implemented Operation Lone Star some months back, defying the Harris-Biden administration in defending their border. Back in 2021, 70% of illegal immigrant arrests occurred at the southern border in Texas. Today, that number has more than halved. It's dropped to just 34%. So a huge shout out to the great state of Texas in rising to the occasion and taking matters into their own hands. But things actually they keep getting worse for Kamala. You may have seen this just when you thought the Kennedy-Trump alignment couldn't get any worse for the Democrats. Now a judge has ruled that third-party far-left candidate Cornel West will remain on the ballot in Michigan. Now remember, the Party of Democracy, the self-anointed party of protecting democracy, has been doing everything it possibly can to block people like Cornel West and Jill Stein and Bobby Kennedy from appearing on swing state ballots. You'll never, ever hear that from the legacy media. The legacy media just sits back and allows the despotic Democrat Party to tout themselves as the defenders of democracy without any pushback, willfully ignoring their 24/7 efforts at deliberately thwarting Democratic participation. Well, thankfully, the courts are stepping up here. A Michigan judge overturned a previous ruling that blocked independent candidate Cornel West from appearing on Michigan's state ballot, which is bad news, of course, for Kamala, given that he's guaranteed to siphon off several thousand votes from her. And Jill Stein, the 2016 nemesis of the Democrat Party, she's going to be on the Wisconsin ballot. The court came through for her as well. She cost Hillary tens of thousands of votes in key swing states like Michigan and Pennsylvania and Wisconsin, and helped to sink Hillary's chances of ever sitting in the White House. And it looks like she's going to do the same thing to Kamala, who will probably do even worse than Hillary did in these key swing states. And again, what's so awesome here is that these ballot reinstatements and these voter roll purgings are just the latest in a whole series of election integrity victories that we've been seeing over the past couple of weeks. We talked about what happened in Nevada, where in a massive blow to Democrats, their Supreme Court just made a landmark ruling that affirmed that election officials do in fact have the right to withhold certification of the vote as long as that vote is being contested. And again, here, the key is, if you remember, one of the things the Democrats did back in 2020 is they rammed through the vote certification while election concerns were still being dismissed. And one of the reasons for this dismissal was these certification deadlines that were supposedly written in stone, right? If election officials didn't certify the election results by such and such date, well, then they're going to get sued. We saw that, of course, most recently with Katie Hobbs in Arizona back in 2022. They used threats to get election officials to certify contested results, and many did so under duress. Well, that now is gone in Nevada. As long as the vote is contested, election officials have the right to refrain from certifying that vote until the concerns are addressed and assuaged. Also, in the key swing state of Pennsylvania, the GOP successfully got a Pennsylvania judge to rule our way on what's called naked ballots. We've talked about this before. A naked ballot is basically a mail-in ballot that's been completed, put in a return envelope, but it's missing what's called a secrecy envelope. So in Pennsylvania, they require two envelopes, one to put the ballot in, that's called your secrecy envelope, and another to put that secrecy envelope in to send it into the election office. It's just another way, as I understand, just another way of securing the vote, making sure that the one filling it out is the real person. But what happened last week is that the Democrats wanted to make it so that votes returned without the secrecy envelope, of course, would still be counted. But Republicans successfully argued, and the court ruled in their favor, that any ballots that are sent in without that secrecy envelope, as required by law, are invalid. They're not going to be counted. And all of this, of course, is on top of what we reported a couple of weeks back. It's actually my favorite story on how the New York Times is absolutely having a temper tantrum over what they're calling a far-right takeover of Georgia's election board. So this is the board that's ultimately responsible for the conducting of Georgia's elections, and any disputes regarding how that election was conducted is handled by that board. There were a bunch of weenies back in 2020, but now they've been taken over by pro-Trump MAGA forces. And yes, no, I've heard that the Rhino governor, Brian Kemp, is seeing if he can do something to intervene, perhaps remove some of the MAGA faithful. At this point, those are just rumors. We'll have to see what happens. He has made his peace with Trump of late. He wants to run for the Georgia Senate in a couple of years. He knows he needs Trump's support if he's going to do that successfully. So I doubt he's going to be doing anything that would upset Trump at this point. But as you can see, we got lots of great news coming in on the election integrity front, just in time for the home stretch towards victory in November.